Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Elliot Grigg, which means we are in preview mode. We're in Philadelphia this weekend, mate. Some IBF World Welterweight title action at the Wells Fargo Center, Saturday the 9th of November. But before we do get into it, this main event rematch, should I say, please do hit that subscribe button and drop us a comment on what we're about to talk about and your thoughts on everything we are going to discuss in this and within the next 10 minutes or so. And yeah, as always, drop a like as well. And yeah, if you see us cropping up in your recommended on YouTube, please do check us out for all of your boxing needs under one roof. Elliot, as I said, we're here for some preview action. We're, of course, talking about Jaron Boots Ennis. Some people would maybe regard him as the best welterweight in the world. We'll maybe come on to that in a bit. And he's fighting Jaron Chukhadzhian. I hope I haven't butchered that name too much. For the second time, they fought, obviously, back in January 2023. So, around, 20 months ago or so, or give or take. And yeah, it was a fairly one-sided fight on that night. And it actually was very one-sided, as in Jaron Ennis won 120 to 108 on all three scorecards. So he won every single round of the fight in all judges' eyes. But here we are for a rematch. So yeah, as I said, I want to kind of discuss, maybe we'll come on to this fight at the end. But first and foremost, I want you to tell me whether or not you believe Boots is the best welterweight in the world.
Well, first off, Paul, thank you very much for having me. Delighted again to be joining you here for this preview. I think if you take a look at the welterweight scene now, it's quite a weak division. I think, to be perfectly honest with you, I think looking at the various different rankings, the ring rankings, etc., you've got Ennis, who's up opposite four. Fought Boots Ennis last time, was outclassed, and I feel like Ennis to a degree is he a world level fighter, maybe fringe world level fighter. To be honest, really, what you think of as world level fighter, definitely obviously European and above. But if I'm taking him as 4, and then you've got the likes of Stanionis, Barrios, Ennis, I think Stanionis is 15 fights, so still not necessarily the most seasoned in comparison to Barrios and Ennis, but I think you've got to have Jaron Ennis for me is sort of stand out in the division. But again, like a weak division, obviously Crawford and Spencer obviously moving through these divisions and moving up and stuff as well. So I think he's number one by distance, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think it's quite a weak division at the same time, and for me, I think Boots as well. I'd like to possibly see Boots, kind of move up himself. To be perfectly honest with you, I think, I think maybe get some of these potential unification fights out of the way if they can be made, and then from there, hopefully, let's move on because he's better in my mind than the current state of the division. To be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you kind of said that. I think, I've discussed a couple of times that in my opinion, we can draw comparisons to the middleweight division. And that it's a division that has been historically stacked, but right now is somewhat weak. I completely agree with what you've just said there, mate. I think, you've got to have Boots as number one because his record speaks for itself. He's still young as well, 32-0, 29 stoppages, so he's got a bit of everything. He can box, he can punch. What I would say is, and people might not like this, I do think his record is still very padded. But then obviously recently he does have that Chukhadzhian win first time around and Avanesian, but bar those, I mean, I think it's a pretty shallow record personally. That being said, that's not his fault. He clearly wants all of the biggest and best fights. Belts were tied up obviously for a while between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, so that he's only obviously then getting this belt after that. So yeah, I think he definitely is the best for me at number one. He's number one right now for me. As you mentioned, some of those other champions, Barrios, Stanionis, even Norman Jr., if you put Boots in with all three of them right now, I think Boots wins all three, personally. But yeah, time will tell, mate. He could well rule the roost at 147 pounds for quite a while until he moves up. Unless, of course, Lewis Crocker beats him, but that's for another video. So yeah. I mentioned there, mate, those champions, Stanionis with the WBA belt, Barrios with the WBC crown, and Norman Jr. with the WBO strap. For you, does Boots beat all of them? If so, do you think he can stop them all? Do you think he maybe be more cautious and outbox, use his boxing ability and go to points? But would you be backing Boots to win all of those fights if he was to then do that and potentially become undisputed?
It's interesting, very interesting question. I think you look at some of those names, like you said, you mentioned. I think Stanionis for me is the one, 15-0. still far too unseasoned, a bit unproven as well, to be honest with you. Like, I think, look at that, I don't actually know. Ennis versus him for me is harder to read because you've not got those kind of those sort of matchups that can sort of calibrate against. Whereas you got to look at like Barrios, obviously fought Tank, didn't he? Fought Keith Thurman, your Dennis Ugar and stuff like that. So you've got kind of names you can look at and go, would he see the bell here against Ennis? I think. He obviously had that KO to Tank, but everyone's been KO'd by Tank, and that was a sort of 11th round. So maybe he could, to be honest with you, could see the bell there, I think, to be honest with you. And if you look at also Ennis himself, you're sort of surprised in the fact that the guy that he's fighting again here went the distance with him, which is very surprising. I'm like, with a guy with a really sort of heavy hands, 29 KOs in 32 fights, you look at the sort of golfing class and thinking, how the hell did that happen? Yeah, he won every round, but was he coasting it? Like, why has he not stopped him, sort of thing? So I actually think that Barrios could go the distance. I'd actually maybe have him stopping Staniotis, and then Norman Jr. I think for me again is another one where I'm looking at him going, yeah, he had that good win last time out against Santillan, didn't he, as well? So again, quite a decent victory. They stopped him as well, so obviously carries power. But I think I can maybe see Boots late stoppage in that one or points. It kind of depends what he wants to do. I think he's that talented. If he wants to sort of coast, he can coast. If not, he doesn't. But I think he'll, out of those three, undeniably would win against all three of them. To me, and it wouldn't even be close. And I think maybe Barrios to see the bell. The other two he might be able to stop.
Yeah, I think we're in total agreement there. I think we kind of answered it in the first question, didn't we, really, by saying he's definitely number one. I think he beats them all as well. Whether that's by stoppage or decision remains to be seen. I think maybe, I'm not saying he's not a big puncher, but I think maybe he's potentially regarded as a bigger puncher than he maybe is because of the level of opposition early on in his career. He got the 20-0 with basically all knockouts, 25-0 with basically all knockouts without fighting anybody. So yeah, but it remains to be seen. He's definitely got a bit of pop. Obviously, one of the hardest hitters at 147. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether when he's facing other champions, other men in the division who think that they have what it takes to beat Boots, whether or not that power translates and whether he can get them out of there. Yeah, I certainly think he could become undisputed. Yeah, I would be backing Boots to win all of those fights personally. But yeah, it remains to be seen whether or not that would be via decision or via knockout. Prediction time, mate. We're back at this fight, the rematch against Chukhadzhian. As I mentioned, it was a UD back in January 2023, 120 to 108 on all three scorecards. Since then, the Ukrainian fighter has had 3 wins, 2 of them via KO, and then he had, for the British interest, he also beat Harry Scarf via unanimous decision. Harry Scarf obviously beating Echo Esserman not so long ago to win the British title as well. So, yeah, he's clearly that European level at least, Chukhadzhian, if not fringe world level. How does this go in the rematch, mate? Do you think it'll be another points win for Boots, or can you see him potentially getting Chukhadzhian out of there this time?
I'm stunned when you look at those records that the first fight played out the way that it played out. I'm surprised Jaron Ennis didn't get him out of there. So for me, I actually think it's going to be a repeat, but a more sort of concussive repeat. To be honest with you, I think he's going to stop him this time around. And I think, to be honest with you, it could be. Mate, you're coming into this fight, like you said, you're coming into this fight having fought Harry Scarf as preparation. It's not in any way the kind of level that you need, obviously, to come up and fight someone like Jaron Ennis. So I think it's going to be actually first half of the fight if Ennis wants it. I really do. I think maybe mid. I saw your eyes widening there, so I'm kind of pull back on that a little bit on that. Maybe go mid rounds, somewhere sort of 6 to 8. But I do think the stoppage is coming. To be honest with you, I really do. I think Ennis by KO. I'm confident in that prediction. To be honest with you,
he has to stop him.
I've been wrong before.
Well, we've both been wrong plenty of times. Let's won't be wrong plenty more times as well. But yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think he has to stop him, doesn't he? He has to make a statement, in my opinion, kind of remind people just how good he is, why he is the number one in the division, and why he deserves these big fights. Going forward, I think he will stop Chukhadzhian this time. And kind of looking at the caveat that if you're Chukhadzhian, you've been comprehensively outboxed for 12 rounds before. So do you just throw caution to the wind and say, stuff it? If I get stopped whilst trying to stop him, who cares? I would love to see that. He might be believing in his power a little bit more now as well, having had those 2 knockout wins since the last fight with Boots. So yeah, wouldn't surprise me if Chukhadzhian was trying to go for it, thinking he can stop Boots, and he does walk on the one, and he gets teed up by Jaron Ennis, and yeah, get stopped as well, mate. Around the mid rounds, I agree with you. I go 6-7. I think that's where my head's at right now. But yeah, we're both in agreement. Jaron boots Ennis to make it 33-0 and secure his 30th knockout in pro ranks. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me as always, mate. Love having these previews with you. And yeah, stay tuned, guys, for plenty more coming your way. Whether it's previews, big fight breakdowns, interviews with fighters, betting tip shows, whatever it is, and we've got you covered. And yeah, of course, please do like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop us a comment on your thoughts on what we've discussed. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me, mate, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Paul. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.